My father stole $50,000 of my inheritance for his dream business that crashed in months. Now he's demanding I go into debt to save his house. I, 24F, never thought I'd be posting here, but I need to get this off my chest and maybe hear from others who've been in similar situations. This is a long one, so buckle up. For context, my grandmother on my mom's side passed away when I was 18. She was always my biggest supporter, the one who came to every school event when my parents were too busy, and the one who taught me to stand up for myself. We were incredibly close, and losing her broke my heart in ways I'm still trying to heal from 6 years later. When she died, she left me a significant inheritance, $75,000 to be exact. It wasn't millions, but to an 18-year-old about to start college, it was life-changing. Grandma had specifically written in her will that the money was meant for my education and future. She wanted me to use it to get through college without debt and maybe have enough left to put a down payment on a house someday. The money was supposed to be mine to manage when I turned 21. My father has always been what you might call an entrepreneur. By that, I mean he's always chasing the next big idea, convinced that this time he'll strike it rich. Throughout my childhood, we lived through countless business ventures, a food truck that lasted 3 months, an online clothing store that never took off, a landscaping business that folded after 1 season. Each time, he'd bounce back with renewed enthusiasm for the next scheme, while my mom quietly picked up extra nursing shifts to keep us afloat. When I was 20 and still in my second year of college, my father approached me with what he called the opportunity of a lifetime. He wanted to open a specialty coffee shop in our town. According to him, the location was perfect, his business plan was solid, and all he needed was some startup capital. He had already invested most of their savings but needed another $50,000 to get the business off the ground. At this point, I was legally supposed to have access to my inheritance in another year, but my parents had been managing it as custodians until then. My father painted a beautiful picture: the business would be so successful that he'd pay me back double within 2 years. My name would even be on some of the paperwork as a partial owner. Plus, I could work there during summers and holidays for extra cash. My mom seemed hesitant but didn't openly oppose the idea. Looking back, I see the exhaustion in her eyes that I missed then, the resignation of someone who had fought this battle too many times before. When I expressed doubt, my father reminded me how much they had sacrificed for me over the years, how they had never taken vacations so I could go to soccer camp, how they had driven old cars so I could have nice clothes for school. The guilt was overwhelming. I gave in. Or more accurately, I never really had control to begin with. The money was still technically in their management, and papers were signed that I didn't fully understand. Just like that, $50,000 of my inheritance went into Brewed Awakening, my father's coffee shop. For a few months, things seemed promising. The shop opened with local newspaper coverage. My father hired a staff of 5, including a talented barista who made impressive latte art. He invested in high-end espresso machines and locally sourced beans. The place looked beautiful with reclaimed wood tables my father had built himself and local artwork on the walls. But problems started almost immediately. The location, while central, had terrible parking. The rent was astronomical. My father, despite all his enthusiasm, knew nothing about coffee beyond drinking it. He clashed with the experienced staff he'd hired, often overruling their suggestions about inventory and pricing. Within 4 months, the head barista quit, taking several loyal customers with her to her new job. My father refused to see the warning signs. He kept investing more money I later discovered was from a second mortgage on our family home. When suppliers started demanding payment up front due to late payments, he switched to cheaper products. The quality suffered, and so did business. By month 8, staff was cut to just my father and 1 part-time employee. My father was working 80-hour weeks, coming home only to sleep for a few hours before returning to the failing business. My mom started picking up even more nursing shifts to cover their mounting personal expenses. 1 year after opening, Brewed Awakening closed its doors for good. My inheritance was gone. The business equipment was sold at a fraction of its cost to cover some debts. And worst of all, my parents were now in serious financial trouble. I was devastated but tried to focus on finishing my degree. Without the remainder of my inheritance, I had to take out student loans for my final year. I moved to a cheaper apartment, took on a part-time job, and ate ramen more often than I'd like to admit. I felt betrayed not just because of the money, but because my grandmother's wishes had been disregarded so completely. For a while, my relationship with my father was strained but civil. He avoided talking about the coffee shop, and I avoided asking about the money. We maintained a surface-level relationship, discussing sports and weather but never anything meaningful. My mom often served as our mediator, translating our feelings to each other when we couldn't find the words ourselves. After graduation, I found a decent job in marketing about an hour from my hometown. The pay wasn't amazing, but it was enough for me to rent a small apartment and start building my life. I was dating someone nice, had made a few friends at work, and was slowly paying off my student loans. Things were looking up despite the setback with my inheritance. Then, 3 weeks ago, I got a call from my mom. Her voice was shaking as she told me they were 3 months behind on their mortgage payments. The bank had started foreclosure proceedings on our family home, the house I grew up in, the one with my height marked on the kitchen doorframe, the one where my grandmother had spent her final days. The next day, my father showed up at my apartment unannounced. He looked older somehow, the lines around his eyes deeper than I remembered. For the first time in my life, I saw my father cry as he explained their situation. After the coffee shop failed, he had tried to keep up with the increased mortgage payments, but then my mom had health issues that forced her to reduce her hours. Medical bills piled up alongside their existing debt. They had been borrowing from my mom's sister for months just to stay afloat, but now she couldn't help anymore. That's when he made his request. If I could just take out a personal loan for $30,000, they could catch up on the mortgage and negotiate with the bank. He promised he would pay me back once he landed a new job he was interviewing for. His voice cracked when he said he couldn't bear to lose the house where he had raised me, where all our family memories lived. As he spoke, all I could think about was my grandmother's money, gone. The education fund she had sacrificed to build for me, gone. The down payment for my future home, gone. And now, he wanted me to go further into debt to clean up his mess. I didn't give him an answer that day. I told him I needed time to think, which wasn't entirely untrue. But deep down, I already knew my answer. I just didn't know how to say it to his face. When I was little, my grandmother used to tell me that love shouldn't hurt. If someone truly loves you, she'd say while brushing my hair, they'll lift you up, not drag you down. I've been thinking about those words a lot lately. I love my parents. Despite everything, I know they love me too. My father isn't malicious, he's just irresponsible and blinded by his dreams. But love doesn't mean enabling harmful patterns or sacrificing my own future security. Yesterday, I called my mom and told her I couldn't take out the loan. I offered alternatives. I could help them find financial counseling, I could contribute a small amount monthly to help with groceries, I could even help them sell the house and find somewhere more affordable to rent. What I couldn't do was put myself in financial jeopardy by taking on their debt. She was quiet for a long time before saying she understood. My father, however, hasn't spoken to me since. My mom says he feels betrayed and embarrassed. His own siblings have refused to help too, having been burned by his failed ventures in the past. The guilt is overwhelming sometimes. When I lie awake at night, I imagine my childhood home with strangers living in it. I think about my mother having to move away from the garden she's tended for 20 years. I wonder if my relationship with my father will ever recover. But then I remember my grandmother. I remember how hard she worked as a school secretary for 40 years to save that money for me. I remember how she wanted to protect me from exactly this kind of situation. And I know I'm making the right choice, even if it's the hardest one I've ever had to make. Some family members are saying I'm heartless, that family should come first no matter what. Others, especially those who knew my grandmother well, are quietly supportive of my decision. My boyfriend thinks I should cut ties completely until my parents get their financial act together, but that feels too extreme. They're still my parents, flawed as they may be. This morning, I drove past our family home on my way to work. The maple tree my father planted when I was born is now taller than the house itself, its leaves just starting to turn golden at the edges. I thought about all the birthdays, Christmases, and ordinary Tuesdays spent under that roof. Part of me wanted to turn around, drive to the bank, and take out that loan. Instead, I kept driving. Because sometimes loving someone means not giving them what they ask for, but rather what they truly need. And what my parents need isn't another financial bailout that enables poor decisions, it's the push to finally face reality and make sustainable changes. I've started researching affordable housing options in their area. I've found a financial advisor who offers free initial consultations for people in crisis. I'm putting together information on bankruptcy protection and debt consolidation. These are the ways I can help without sacrificing my own financial future. Maybe someday, when I'm more established, I can help them more substantially. Maybe in a few years, I'll be in a position to buy a small house and have them live with me if needed. But right now, at 24, still paying off student loans and just starting my career, I can't be their financial safety net. The hardest part of growing up is realizing your parents are just people, flawed, sometimes selfish, often short-sighted people who make mistakes like everyone else. The father I idolized as a child, who seemed to know everything and could fix anything, is just a man who never learned to manage money or plan for the future. It doesn't make me love him less. In some ways, seeing his vulnerability makes me understand him better. But understanding doesn't mean I have to repeat his patterns or rescue him from consequences at my own expense. Tomorrow, I'm meeting my parents for lunch at a neutral location to discuss next steps. I'm nervous but resolved. If there's one thing my grandmother's money was meant to teach me, it's financial independence and responsibility. Though the money is gone, the lesson remains. And maybe, just maybe, it's a lesson I can now help teach my parents, even if they're not ready to hear it yet. If you've read this far, thank you. It helps just to put these thoughts somewhere outside my own head. Has anyone else had to make tough financial boundaries with family? How did you handle the aftermath? How do you balance compassion with self-protection? TLDR, my father used most of my inheritance to start a business that failed. Now my parents might lose their house, and my father wants me to take out loans to save it. I've decided not to, but the family fallout is tough to handle, ***. Update, wow, I didn't expect this post to get so much attention. Thank you to everyone who shared their stories and advice. After meeting with my parents yesterday, things went better than expected. My mom has been doing research of her own and brought up downsizing before I even suggested it. My father was quiet but not hostile. They're going to meet with the financial advisor I found next week. I'll post another update if anything significant changes. In the meantime, I'm working on strengthening my own boundaries while still being supportive in non-financial ways.